Welcome to the Midwest Moguls Show, where we talk all things business, real estate, and entrepreneurship. Let's dive into today's episode and make business enjoyable again.
Welcome back to the Midwest Mogul Show. We have Mark Pomerenke in the studio with us today. Mark is a hotelier, hotel developer, family man, Christian, dad of two, correct?
Boys,
two
yes.
boys. Okay.
Wow.
And Mark's a overall well-rounded business owner, real estate developer, real estate investor. Like you have a laundry list of things, and I'm not doing it justice, but Mark, if you could introduce yourself, tell the listeners, viewers a little bit about yourself, and we'll go from there.
Sure. First of all glory to God. I mean,
Yeah.
everything is, all the successes are certainly through Him.
Yeah.
And I basically have started a number of companies. I've,
Okay.
Developed and built a little over 80 hotels.
Oh my
about 19 states, all over the country. Farthest east was like Pennsylvania. Farthest west was Idaho. Farthest north was North Dakota, and south was Texas. So
Wow.
all those states in between, we've built and developed properties.
Jeez.
So when you're saying building hotels, is it like under a brand image, or how does that, I guess, walk us through the initial steps into that, or kind of the backstory?
Sure. Well, I'll give you the whole story.
Yep, go for it.
Yeah.
As a kid, I was always loving development and stocks and trading
Yep.
and all that stuff. Actually, I worked for a hedge fund when I was in high school as a kid.
Dang.
No kidding.
Took an account from $3,000 and made it over $1 million when I was 18.
Wow.
And lost it all.
Oh.
Caveat to the story.
But the hotel aspect, actually, growing up,
Yeah.
my family managed motels.
Okay.
We lived at the motel.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So like in the manager's apartment,
Yeah.
we lived in there, and I ran the front desk. I
Yep.
did laundry, a variety of things,
Everything.
carried bags. I mean, really, when I started trading, we had a hotel up in Flagstaff, Arizona,
Yep.
and it was we had a tour bus every day because we were close to the Grand
Yep.
Canyon
Yep.
and stuff. So that's why I saved up like $3,000 over the
Dang.
summer when I was
Dang,
like
that's
I was
awesome.
13 or something like that.
Just hustling.
Just
Yeah.
hustling, yeah. And just really loved numbers, and it was like I was a day trader before day trading was cool.
Yep.
I mean, before it was actually
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
before the CNBC was it
Yeah.
was Financial News Network. I used to watch the ticker tape
Yeah.
and figure out all. I just loved it. And I
YouTube finance wasn't a
Yeah.
thing.
there wasn't no internet. Okay,
No
Not to date,
ChatGPT.
does it all?
yeah,
but-
right. I'm 112, but so I in addition I also would hang out with a real estate developer. This is
Okay.
a guy who would build some spec homes, high-end spec homes,
Yep.
as well as he'd build some condo projects, just a variety of things.
Yep.
Cool guy, a guy named Augie Shepman. And
Okay.
Augie kind of taught me the development game as a kid, and I just loved it. I would go throughout the valley in the Phoenix area.
Yep,
That's
yep.
where I went to high school and grew up there. I could go up and down every single street in the valley, and I could tell you how many square feet were in that building, how much it cost to build.
Holy
I
smokes.
just
Yeah.
loved numbers, and it was just that's what
Yeah.
that was me. But so I got into that, but then I got into hotels. I was managing a hotel,
Yep.
and one day I just like want to get back into doing
Yeah.
development. Kind of put the investment aspect, development aspect together. And I was on an 8-hour car drive, and I was driving, and actually I ended up going through Montello, Wisconsin. a small
Montello.
little
Yeah, that's
town.
what I was going to say.
Yeah.
The hole in the wall.
Right,
yeah.
Not that I never did a deal with
Exactly.
Montello, but that was kind of the idea. I was
Yep.
like, me and my business partner at the time, Brian, we were going through. We're like, nobody's hitting little small towns building hotels. So I went back to the office and tried to run the numbers to see if a hotel would work in Montello or
Yep.
whatever,
Yeah.
And I figured out a 20-room property. Hey, I couldn't make it pencil, with labor and the whole works. But once I got to about 30 rooms, it started to make some sense if I figured out how to make it a public-private partnership.
Okay.
So what I did is the next day, there's a town called Brillion, Wisconsin. Here
Yep.
in,
Oh, yeah.
here in
That's where he's getting
Yep.
married over there.
Brilliant.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding,
Are
yeah.
you, really?
Yep.
The cobblestone creek.
Yeah, yep.
Okay, so we basically went there, met with the city because I talked to them earlier. They wanted to do like a 60, 70 room property, major flag and the whole works, and it just didn't make sense. So I talked to them. They're like, yeah, we're gonna, I know, we want something bigger. I'm like, well, that's fine. We can, no problem. Next day I went to Clintonville, Wisconsin, another town, not too far from here. And and talked to Lisa, the city manager. And I said, Lisa, or presented kind of my idea and the whole works. And Lisa's like, oh my. She goes and closes the office door and she goes, okay, here's the deal. This has to stay in this office because if you don't build a hotel in this town, you're going to break the mayor's heart. I mean, that's been his goal since he ran for mayor is to bring a nice quality motel type of thing to the town.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a joke, but the reality is we went. City was phenomenal to work with. The consul. Basically, they gave us our whole down payment through tax increment financing as well as some revolving loan funds. I mean, they really wanted it.
Wow.
And on top of that, they gave us a standing ovation. We came out of there. It's like they approved the deal, and then a standing ovation. I walked out the door, looked at my business partner. I said, "Did you see just what happened there? They gave us all the money we needed." And a standing ovation. I love rural America. And it was, and it like literally just started going from town to town. I was getting calls constantly from little towns all over the country. And we just kept going and going and going. Then there's this little thing called the financial crisis. So I think we're on deal number 6, I believe.
Okay.
Because the original plan was my partner Brian and me, we were just going to own like 50-50, and just own the whole thing. Well, unfortunately, lending changed. And obviously at that time I had no money. I literally started this whole business with credit cards.
That happens. I'm a testament to that.
I said, you know what? I need to save up enough money or to build up enough credit on my credit cards to survive 2 years without a paycheck. I was down to my last $23 available credit before we got my first deal.
Wow.
That's why I say all glory to him. I mean, this isn't. I'm just a moron.
Figuring out day by day.
Yeah, exactly. But it was crazy. So like literally I've done, 100+ millions of dollars in projects and our whole company and collectively with all of them, we probably have 1,000 employees or something like that. Started with my business partner's line of credit. He had a HELOC for like $47,000. That's what we bought our first piece of dirt for. We actually ended up paying him back, I believe, in 2 weeks after he could put it out. So we had money out there. Other than that, my credit card did live off because I didn't take a paycheck. Plus that, that's how this just kept launching. And we just started creating companies and vertically integrated everything from, I mean, I can go.
Well, that's what we're going to have to dissect this piece by piece here because that's where I'm like, I have literally, as you're telling, and this is, I've heard a background of this before, Mark, when we had the previous conversation, but then it's like, okay, now there's so many other questions burning in my mind that I'm like, okay, well, what about this or that or what have you? But so you mentioned before, like basically was it like TIF money that the city gave you. Can you explain that for anyone who's watching, listening right now? Like, how does that work that they're willing to, or they have funds tentatively like set aside for development projects?
Sure.
I guess give some background to that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's basically how it works. It's tax increment financing. They create a thing called tax increment district, which is an area of town that they allocate that they want to see development growth and things like that. Well, how it works, and it actually is available in, I believe, 48 out of the 50 states. Okay. Arizona, where I live half the time, they don't allow it. Okay. It's one of the
interesting. Yeah, that's kind of that sucks.
Yeah, it really does. It really hurts small town. I mean, it's bad. But basically, how it works. So let's give you an example. Let's say that there was a property, an area that had, or just property. That's $100,000 was the current base tax value. That's what they're getting the property tax or whatever, $100,000. Let's say I go out and build a couple $1 million building on that thing. Well, I'm creating $1.9 million of increment, basically, because for $100,000 freezes. So basically, the schools, all the fire and all that stuff, they get the same amount of money no matter what because they freeze it. But it's all the growth can be used, the tax revenue that's going to be generated in the future as incentives to encourage development. Interesting. And it's an amazing tool if used properly. And there's basically 2 ways you can go with TIF. And I can really get into
well, that's what I know. That's what I'm like. We need to break this down in some other one because I'm selfishly, it's like I'm gaining a lot of knowledge right now. I enjoy this, but.
And I love talking about it.
Exactly. So with that, like, do you now, like, if say someone's looking to develop, is always the smartest move to try and, especially if you're building larger style properties, would you have the the disposition to go towards or try to attract like the TIF money or build in those specific areas right now? Does that make the most sense financially, or what's kind of the logic based upon that?
It's yes and no.
Okay.
It really, I mean, obviously back then it was a source of capital. It was a way for
Of
us to
course.
start a
You
company.
need to do something.
Right. So yeah, you look at that. The reality is all of the projects that we did, they wouldn't have happened without TIF.
Mhm.
I mean, that's the element that really made it make sense. And you're pioneering in a lot of markets. So it's risk to it. And that's kind of helps mitigate the risk and kind of says, hey, we're going in this, you got to participate as well. I mean, come on, because you guys we're building a structure that's going to create tax revenue and sales tax revenue and hotel, motel tax and stuff like that for years and years to come. So there's just a crazy amount of revenue that's generated. Actually and I'm talking, this is like when we first started, there was a study that said if you captured a guest in your town instead of going to another town, they spent on average about $150, $160 a night in your town. Between the hotel stay, eating at a restaurant, going to the gas station, buying a T-shirt, all that stuff. So those are things.
Interesting.
Yeah, I guess.
The economic
I wouldn't have thought of that.
The economic impact's amazing. And what really was a big deal, there's another factor is when a small town is trying to compete for major employee or bring jobs in. Well, economic development, this is a story I heard over and over and over like a broken record, but they're like, we lost out because we didn't have a place to stay. We lost it out to a different town when they were like comparing towns. So it was like that was a big tool for the economic development.
Yeah, it's like you have to.
Yeah.
It's almost a must-have.
Correct. It's like on the checklist of whatever they need, like the space and the shipping.
That's
and all
interesting.
So curious, like what was like the criteria that you're looking at when looking at different, I guess, towns to build all these, hotels and everything like that? Was there a specific like criteria that you're trying to look for? Was it population or like kind of break down, I guess, what the, scope would be when trying to find a location to develop?
Sure. Actually, how we typically would do it is we wanted to be like going to markets where there was no real competition. I mean, basically the competition was maybe an old mom and pop motel or something
like a blue
that.
ocean strategy sort of.
Basically, we looked at that, and there was a chain called Elko Duckwell.
Okay,
I don't know if you remember Elko stores.
Yeah,
I used to look at they were a public company, and I could tell what they looked at because I was reading their annual reports and their stuff like that, and I figured out that they are like the small town Walmart. So what I did is I looked at their stuff because they wouldn't go into any market that was more than like 16,000 people for the population base or whatever, because then Walmart comes in. They didn't below that. And that's right where we went.
Like that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Sweet spot. So we basically look for like a county seat that's below, the trade area of 16,000.
Wow.
Interesting.
And then now, like when you're going through that, and then like say you find the development site and you have the business plan in place or whatever, you're breaking ground on it. How, like, was your specialty sourcing all the people to get there and start the work? Was that your business partner Brian's strategy, or like how did you all fit into the pieces on the puzzle?
Sure. Actually, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of took care of like the construction side and the development side and all that stuff. My partner Brian was more in the operations. He had a management company, and he actually managed some of his family's properties that were some of the national brand hotels.
Oh, wow.
So he did that. What's crazy is we became like I think there was years we were like the second largest hotel builder in the country. I mean, we do like 15 deals a year, 10, 15 deals a year. And I know nothing about construction, even though I have a license, I could build a skyscraper because I've done so much commercial construction.
Wow.
But insane. I could build a hotel within $5,000 of each other. $2 million project, and I'd come in with that close. I had everything dialed in.
Jeez.
It was
And how'd you do that? Because that's what we were literally having a conversation, and this is like Joe and I were talking, and then my dad and then my brother, we were going through like renovation things yesterday and just making things more efficient.
Sure.
And I gave Joe the example, and I'm like, hey, Mark knows a lot on this topic, so let's suck some knowledge out of it today. Let's just drain him of all this. But to make things that efficient is, especially across the scale of like millions of dollars in construction costs, how did you get that down to such a system and a process?
Well, there's a couple good factors. Number one is I had the most phenomenal talent that worked for me. I mean, just the greatest in construction and operations and whatever. I mean, I give them all the praise there. We had good vendors, things like that. The other thing is with the financial crisis, all the good players weren't working.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So I was able to learn the business from the best,
Yep.
in their particular
Yeah.
trade
Right.
because they weren't working. I mean, that's literally how I got my architect degree, everything. Because it's like, well, we'll throw a
Correct. Yeah. It's like, hey, you don't
go fish and see.
Yeah.
This guy seems crazy. Let's see what.
Yeah.
And that's literally how it happened. And basically, my goal every project.
Yeah.
I tried to improve, like in construction, there's divisions.
Yep.
Construction, you get concrete, you get all this
Correct.
everything. Well, my goal was to I mean, I bid it out to 100 people. I mean, it was like to get the right number, and I tried to improve like 1 or 2 divisions in every hotel.
Yeah.
Till I got it to such a fine science. I mean, I built the exact same building.
Exactly.
And over.
Wow.
And it was just a basically copy and paste.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yep. It's
Wow.
like, so literally I could roll into a town.
Yep.
And basically negotiate an incentive package, put an investment group together, erect the building in less than a year. I mean, we literally would go from just saying, whatever, Nowheresville or whatever, come check out our town. We got the best town. The little story on the best town. Every one of the little towns they show you their school. They're all excited, and that's what's so awesome about rural America. And it's just the people are phenomenal to deal with, and quite frankly, when you go to rural America, if you don't get the feeling like it's going to work here, or like, which I say, making it easy.
Yeah.
I just get in my Ford Taurus and I drive another 20 miles to another town.
Yeah.
That's literally what I did. I went from town to town to town. And some of them were, progressive and they wanted to see growth, and others said, we don't, whatever.
Correct.
Yeah. We don't want it.
Like, you know what? I don't either.
It's like, this isn't worth the conversation.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. And that's what I was having a conversation with a friend of mine today, and we were talking about a city south of here. And then like basically the inspectors making it so difficult to want to do specifically like flip properties, rental properties, or what have you, and them flagging literally everything. What did you run across those same issues with city officials trying to basically stall out projects, or was it just so efficient and they were all on your side because it's like, hey, Mark's bringing in a ton of tax revenue. They're doing all these things to improve the community. They're like, every other business is going to benefit from this. Did you have any of that on your line of work, or no?
We really didn't have any issues because, again,
That's so
we
incredible.
eliminated them right up front.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with it. There's so many thousands of towns. What do we need?
Wow.
We don't need to.
Yeah.
We don't need to be here.
Yeah.
And we literally, that's how it was kind of the. And it's like asking a girl out that's never been asked out.
Yeah.
It's like so excited. I'm not just saying that, but it's just kind of they're excited and we're all excited.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, that is a good one.
That's funny.
So it was just the joy.
Yeah.
There was so much joy, and just the joy in the people. And I, out of all these projects, there was very few issues. Actually, probably some of the most issues is like in some towns they like sub out to different like third party companies for inspections and stuff.
Correct.
That's probably where maybe if we had anything, that was the issue because they weren't like.
There's a little bit of disconnect between one and the other. And now, did you like say when you were going into these municipalities or townships or what have you? Was there like a pitch deck put together, or how does that go from verbally you telling someone to be like, hey, this is actually what we're doing, how we're doing it, like the efficiency, the numbers, everything. Like, what is that from?
You mean from the start when we did it, or like as we were going out?
Like
literally from the start when we went to Clintonville, we didn't say what hotel brand we were going to be at.
Really?
No, it was we literally didn't know. We didn't know. We came up with the name on the way there. It was like we literally we were having Taco John's. It was potato Olays is what we figured out.
There's no way these guys are naming it this.
The reality is all these companies were created without a plan. It was like literally every day was a new, we pivoted when we had to pivot. And I honestly, I know my wife's very plan-like.
Yep.
I'm not. I'm very flexible and I calculate it out and I'm basically a conservative gambler and I look at the odds and if it makes sense, we move on. And let's just say I failed a lot.
Yeah.
Had a lot of L's.
But do any, like when you're, and we're kind of switching topics, do any of the major losses come top of mind? Like when you say that, it's like, hey, there's this project or that one that got away from us or whatever the case is. like share some of those because that's if you're willing to.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
'cause
Are
that's
you
where-
talking like after the building gets built or
any
during the
of the
construction?
thing, yeah, like anything that it's like, hey, what disaster experiences have you had? I have a couple that come top of mind for me, but
Sure.
I don't know if you have the same.
I'll tell you, again, back
Yeah.
financial crisis,
Yep.
big established subs and stuff like
Yeah.
that were going out of business
Right.
and things. I had an electrician that, this was like, I think deal number 2 or 3
Okay.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We had paid them and they didn't pay the suppliers. And so we had like a 20-some thousand dollar hit, which
Yeah.
was huge for us at the
Yeah.
time. That's where we really learned how to buy stuff and develop companies in a way,
And vertically
to
integrate.
vertically integrate all our stuff. I mean, that's how we started our import company. We brought all our imported all our like granite and stuff like that. We'd have shipping containers that would come from overseas, and we did that actually. We had a kind of a middleman guy where we'd buy it from, and he was based in Utah. And at the time, I think we sent him a deposit for like $100 and some thousand or whatever it was. For I think it was 3 properties or whatever, and went out of business. Just took off, and that's when we said, you know what? Why do we need a middleman?
Yeah.
Let's go to China or let's go wherever. And that's how we created an import company to actually import the stuff direct, bought them direct. Because I figured if a guy in Utah is going to run away with our money, I mean, let's take the odds.
Let's try it ourselves.
If
we screw up, at
least it's us doing it.
Can't blame anyone else in this situation.
That's literally how we started so many companies. I mean, we would just start a company after a company. I mean, from aviation to whatever. I mean, just like got out of the Ford Taurus and started getting our own planes and stuff like that, and ended up having a jet charter company and stuff like that. It's like,
jeez,
oh my gosh,
that's insane.
And it's in like from starting all the companies, like what are the like when you're starting a business now, like what are you taking into consideration? Because I know it's different for everyone. And like I have my experiences that it's like, hey, getting into a partnership or something or a business relationship is a little. Well, I guess it's not that much different than a normal relationship if you're getting married or what have you. Similar questions, but what would you now learn or expect or like what's kind of the expectation going into partnerships now on your side? Because you have success, you have things that you're good at, but
again, people change and things like that. Just like in
yeah,
marriage,
exactly.
whatever. You want to know who you're partnering with. I really don't know if a 50-50 partnership is the right thing. It's like
why is that? Yeah, just
because because you're at a standstill. So that's kind of my it's difficult that way. I really have to figure out that on the partnership aspect. Maybe there's a different way that we can compensate. But somebody's got to be in charge.
That makes sense
because everybody's vision
is different.
It's different. And we all have different alignments and things like that.
Interesting. That's very interesting. And now, like, would you say from, like, say you were getting back, well, I guess let's phrase this question. This, again, a selfish question. But now, like, looking at things from the bigger picture, after having so much experience in development and all these other businesses that you would have, if you were starting out, or say you're your kid's age, like, and you have all the knowledge that you have now, like, what route would you decide to go?
That's
if you could pick, even if it's like 1 or 2 or like the top 5 or something like that, because that's kind of you have a unique perspective versus like most people don't necessarily have that.
Yeah, there's so many areas, and that's my problem. Because I love so many things. It
probably drives your wife crazy.
I've got the personality of an entrepreneur. That's
exactly.
I think differently as a visionary. So personally, I really like the money business.
Okay.
That's what I
like the lending?
The lending side.
Okay.
Just that kind of it's more scalable. There's not so many pieces involved. But I also just love people too. So it's developing that relationship. That's kind of an area. But other than that, I'm just trying to think, what would I do again?
If you didn't have the bankroll.
If you were with no bankroll.
Exactly. Yeah, that's.
I mean, obviously, I know you're in the wholesaling.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, honestly, that's a good step to get income start rolling. I mean, it's like wholesaling properties and tying it up without any money. That's really the that's,
I don't know if there's any easier.
There literally isn't.
It's like you're selling a contract.
That's amazing. How you can turn things. That's obviously a great business that you have. Other than, I mean, there's so many businesses I just love to take and expand. And, honestly, on a personal side,
Yeah.
one thing you really want to do is make sure that your spouse or whatever is on board.
Mhm.
I mean, your family is board.
Yeah.
That's something that I struggled with because we didn't agree, and we still don't agree today.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like, that is very important. So I always try to mentor younger guys
Correct.
and stuff. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
make it very important
Yeah.
that if you're the visionary entrepreneur, you're weird. I mean, it's not,
exactly.
there's not it's a very small, you're not normal. Okay.
Mhm.
And I always say, to do great things, you got to be not normal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, if you just want to get by with life and
Yeah.
enjoy life, which is nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Mhm.
not. I mean, that's literally, that's where my struggle is.
Yeah.
Just because I have a hard time relating. I just
Mhm.
don't understand
Well,
why people can't think this way.
Yeah.
You know,
And I was actually, and Joe, if you have a question,
Yeah.
definitely jump in. The one question that I had, so what you just brought up, Mark, like when you're, like you have all these visions for what you want to achieve or what you've done so far, and then like what the future holds, but then do you surround yourself with people that are thinking similar? Because like what I've found is like when people aren't necessarily, not that there's anything wrong with that, I don't want to make it seem that way, but it is hard to relate. And then you're like, hey, I enjoy working. I enjoy what I do. Like I could work 60, 70, 80 hours a week and not have any issue with it.
right.
Mhm.
But then there's people who are content with, hey, 20 hours is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. Like how have you, I guess, traversed that?
Yeah.
Difficult.
Yeah,
I mean, 'cause
that's where I'm like,
honestly, there's there's very few people that have an abundance mindset.
yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
And when you can, and it's like, again, the old saying,
Yeah.
your network is your net worth and
Yep,
stuff like
yep.
that.
Mhm.
It's true.
Yeah.
And it's your mindset. Everything is the mind.
Yeah.
I had nothing.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I know I literally that anybody can do what I
Yeah.
did. I'm not that smart.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
I mean, I may be smart in a couple areas.
Yeah, exactly.
But other than that, not very well balanced. Okay. My wife calls me neurodivergent. Okay. So I don't know.
Oh, my
And it's not a compliment.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I am what I am. That's what God created me. So,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
It is.
That's what I'm kind of pondering on. And
Mhm.
I've been thinking a lot about different things and like going through it. And I think there's, with any business, there's the highs and the lows. And typically in the low times, you're like, oh, like, woe is me, whatever. And having the faith component definitely helps
Mhm.
extremely. And without that, I don't know what people fall back on. Well, I guess I do know what it's probably vices that aren't the greatest. And
Mhm.
it is what it is on that side of things. But I think the faith component definitely helps out there. And I guess what has, and this is kind of leading the podcast down a different rabbit hole, but what has allowed you to grow in your faith over the years? Because I know when we had a previous conversation, we kind of alluded to it a little bit, but I guess tell the viewers and listeners that story a little bit.
sure. Well, again, like I said, as
Yeah.
a kid, I was always figuring out business,
Yeah,
money,
yeah.
and what I just, it was like a God to me.
Yep.
Mhm.
And you only have one God.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And actually, it really, my first start at the business, I'll be honest, I
Yep.
was in it for growing money, credit
Of
card
course,
type
of
thing.
course,
That was just
yep.
literally what it was. And but as I drove my Ford Taurus town to town without,
Yep.
my family at home with nothing and everything, and I just listened to K-Love Christian radio
Mm.
for hours and hours and hours.
Yep.
And that's literally what it kind of changed my
Mhm.
outlook on where I want to be and what God put me
Yeah.
here for.
Mhm.
And I know when I basically sold, or not when I sold, when I was able to get enough of the business
Yeah.
going to where I was able to pay my credit cards off.
Yeah.
And we're talking a few years into
Yeah.
the
Right.
business and stuff. Remember, I had my first $50,000.
Yeah.
That was after I got my credit cards paid off. I had 50,000 extra, and I'm like, at that point, I knew. I said, I have to give it all away.
Yeah.
Because if I don't give it all away, it's all going to be money is going to be
Yeah.
my idol. And
That's
now,
interesting.
and it's amazing the peace that you have when
Mhm.
when you just put God in control and
Yep.
just let Him be.
Mhm.
He's like, hey, and the blessings and the
Yeah.
opportunities. It's been amazing. I mean, it's
Huh.
just, and again, that's where you want to make sure that you're on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah.
With all the people that you work
Well,
with.
exactly.
Mhm.
Because it's not all about money. I mean,
Yeah.
I people think, yeah, he's all
Yeah.
about the money.
Yeah.
I am not. Literally, it's about the deal. It's
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the drive and the excitement and seeing people smile. The joy,
That's exactly
the
it.
joy of
Yeah.
investing and creating.
Yeah. Well, and we were having a conversation the
Yeah,
other
we were.
day with Josh, and I don't know if you've ever met or talked to him, Josh Jensma and Derek Loda. So we were talking with them, and they came in and we did a podcast and everything like that. Released probably just before this episode.
Yeah.
But with them, like we were talking after the fact, and that's where like we were just basically venting to each other about just the difficulties that come with business.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But then like you have that fallback. You have the fallback of whether it's reading the Bible or studying scripture or just diving into things and like, hey, this is in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty small.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in 6 months from now, or even in 6 weeks from now, is any of this really going to matter? No. Like we're so tied up and
Yeah.
we're wrapped up in ourselves
Mhm.
when we shouldn't be. And that's, I guess we're flawed humans. Like we're sinners. And that's just, I appreciate you talking about that a little bit because it's grown to become a lot more important in my life. And I shared my struggles with you a little bit on kind of the entire thing, but just growing in faith is, I think, extremely important, especially if you're like entrepreneurship is not
For the faint of heart.
Yeah. It's
like
other easier paths.
I know. And that's what, and like kind of on that topic, it's like, okay, if you want to get your nuts kicked in every single week for the next 30 years, yeah, it's perfect.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
go for it.
Yeah.
But if you don't, then yeah, maybe find a little bit more secure path or a safer path or whatever the case might be. Like to each their own on that side. But I guess with that, like kind of transitioning the conversation, let's Joe,
Yeah.
do you have any questions on that?
I do have a
Go for
question. So kind of going back to when you started basically starting other companies because you realize, okay, can't really trust the other guys. Things are just falling through. So you started your own companies. Curious as to like when you were doing that, were you basically just getting people put in place to run those other, I guess, companies for you? Or was it you and your partner basically both managing all these, I don't know how many companies you had at one point, but like managing them all at once? Or how did that, I guess, work out when putting the right pieces, in place for each company?
Again, we usually would have a leader or somebody that knew that particular, obviously, trade or that
Okay.
certain thing. I mean, like I said, I'm not handy.
Yep.
I literally get my hand stuck plunging a toilet. So
Yeah.
I'm not mechanical at all. Okay, I can't change a tire, but it's like, but it's crazy. I'm the one that
Yeah.
holds all the license. All
Yeah.
Hey, that's the same here. That's
interesting.
I'm not a general contractor.
But yeah, you have to, when you see opportunity, and it really comes down to when you look at things and you're like, hey, I understand everybody should make a fair profit. Nothing wrong with that. But when it gets to the point where it's like, gee, I could buy a company that does that, and literally in one project, I'd have the company paid for.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's kind of the
Okay.
angle of where I would calculate things. I mean, I bought concrete companies out. I mean, concrete form trucks, I knew nothing about it.
Exactly.
It was a disaster, but whatever. Right?
gosh.
But I was able to negotiate with a sub then because they knew I was serious. I mean, I would
That's
So
buy a company.
So you were buying these companies and then having basically someone come in or having someone stay in the company to then run it basically for you. Is that kind of what I'm getting?
Yeah, actually, and you said what would I do again? I would buy companies as well.
Okay.
Today, that's exactly what the path that I would go right now. I'd buy companies. I've never bought a company. I always created companies.
Yeah.
Right.
I buy like their equipment and all that stuff. So that's kind of where I ended up with this concrete company. And
Interesting.
yeah, it didn't pan out exactly what I wanted. But I think if we would have gave it a little more time, I think we could have worked through it. And it could have been success.
And that's what
Interesting.
by starting and stopping so many different things, do you have any like was there one business versus the other that was like, hey, this is a gold mine? Like if I would have had more focus on this, it could have really turned into something, or was anything stick out in particular?
Well, obviously when we became a franchise and we built the franchise model, that you make no money in franchising for years.
Really?
Years and years until you get big enough. I mean, once you start having 50 locations or something, then it starts to make some money.
Yeah.
Right.
But up to that point, I mean,
why is that? Why isn't there any money in franchising?
well,
Or like I shouldn't.
Yeah.
That's a broad statement. Sorry.
Yeah.
you got one property and it's paying you $3,000 a year.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
It's until you can build enough of a name to profit off of that and stuff.
Okay.
I mean, that's a great business.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of it's scalable once it's started. It's a long path. So, but what I really would love to do in the future is just to find people that really want to own their own business. So maybe they're working for a company, maybe they're a supervisor for a whatever plumbing company or whatever it is, you know, is to show them how we can buy an existing business, so it gets them a paycheck in a way, and then scale that business and grow it and stuff like that. That's just
well, and it seems like there's a ton of opportunity for that. Like it's
Grey tsunami, you know.
I know that's what I'm like. I look at even in our line of work, like buying houses directly, and I just think of that like marketing message and like, okay, well, couldn't you say the same thing about businesses? Like there's business owners that probably are looking to exit in some way, shape, or form. They probably don't even know that they can.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, hey, John or Sue or whomever who works here, they have no interest in buying this, or they don't have the bankroll to buy it. Now, do we just shut it down or whatever the case is? And that's where I think like it could be so applicable. And I'm not like I'm learning a lot about business, especially in the last 6 to 12 months. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like the more skills that I gain, like that seems more possible to do that. But that does seem like a probably I don't want to say easier, but a very easy niche to tap into, if that makes sense.
Here's the key. The key is people need confidence.
Yep.
And that's what people lack.
Yeah.
If you believe it, and it's all in your mind. Yeah. I mean, everything is your mind.
That's
it's like, and obviously it's in my mind, and I'm guided by my Heavenly Father. I mean, it's just like that's just how it keeps me going. So that's where I'm like, is there a way that I can marriage this? Can I find somebody that has the skill sets, you know, and help them? Because I want to see everybody have that joy and be able to, you know, to grow. The reality is, and I always go to people and they're always like, oh, sure. I'm like, you know, you realize that everybody has $5 million that they can get an SBA loan. And if you can fog a mirror, you can get an SBA loan. I mean, it's,
I wouldn't even know that.
I mean, that's it's kind of weird thinking back, you know, when I started out, my first project was a couple $1 million. I mean, it was like, you know, most people start with a $60,000 flip home or something like that. I didn't. And I guess I probably wouldn't have been down to $23 because I would have been able to generate some revenue while I was doing it. But that's how I got into the you know, 7-figure type of projects. I mean, I never did a project, I mean, less than that.
That's crazy.
Which it's kind of weird. You know, it's like you go for that. It's a lot like in like, I know friends that like are in the commercial brokerage, real estate business and stuff like that.
Right.
And that's a longer pathway before you can make a living.
Correct.
You got to learn how to, you know, eat on ramen noodles for a long time.
Yeah, that's a huge sales cycle.
But once you learn that cycle, you're high ticket sales, and you know your deals are bigger. And what I found is that the bigger deals, the easier. It's
really
like a lot easier because you have revenue to pay talent and to actually have things. When you're doing small stuff, you got to, you know, what you do, you have to carry a bunch of hats, which I but just for getting high level advice. I mean, it's hard to do it when you're doing a small thing, but when you're working on, you know, multi-million-dollar projects, well, again, that professional fee or whatever, it can be, just get so much more knowledge. And that's where I've been able to.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Well, now, like, because Joe and I have conversations about this, and we talk about like the scalability of like a flipping and wholesaling business of like it's essentially a sales model. It's like, okay, more marketing you do, more leads come in, more conversions that you can get, so on and so forth. Now, like some of the listeners, viewers right now, and essentially what's popular, especially with younger people for whatever reason, is this ability to achieve some sort of basically passive income to then be able to do whatever the hell that they want. That's going to, and put it in the simplest terms. Knowing what you know now, what would your thoughts be on that? Would it be like, hey, rental real estate, this business, that business, lending or lending?
Yep. Private money lending is the key because I don't have any tenants, toilets, termites, nothing like that. I have money. I mean, it's like I know how to connect money. That's literally, I enjoy it because it's so scalable. I mean, I could manage a huge portfolio just myself and you know, in not much time. So that's where you build enough where you got income coming in from that. Obviously, the problem is you don't necessarily keep up with inflation. I think the actual real hack is to get paid off rental properties and then take lines of credit off of those and lend that out and have the arbitrage. That way that way you're keeping up with inflation on your
that's smart.
on your
Your money.
your money in the state. But again, you're also able to get the yield a lot higher because in rental real estate, the reality is after you have some turnover and you have whatever, you really don't make anything unless you do your exit or you do your refi or whatever, you pull cash out that way, which is the key for a tax standpoint and all that. But
that's interesting.
That's literally, key is to create a system and just keep growing and growing. And to make it scalable.
Yeah.
The hard thing in the flipping world is that every one of your buildings is different.
I know. Every single one.
Yep.
Every project.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to do it at a large scale.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make a nice living and create a decent business.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't know if there's many flipping companies that
no, I don't.
That
do
correct $100 million a year or whatever.
Yeah, I know.
That's
what we were talking about.
Yeah.
I'm like, to grow it past a certain threshold, I'm like,
there's something
I don't want to say it's not possible, but it's very, very difficult. I'm like, what do you, like if you have aspirations to grow an extremely large business or a pretty decent sized business, like flipping and wholesaling might not be the route to take. Like there might be other opportunities somewhere.
Wholesaling is a lot easier.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's
because you obviously
you don't have
you're not dealing with sticking money into the properties and all that.
Or contractors.
Right. I mean, right away you're making some money. If you're ROAS or whatever, you have a marketing standpoint, you can make some money. Great, and you can turn the money and your return on capital or whatever. The cash can cycle fast.
And would you, like, as far as like rental real estate goes, do you have a certain disposition towards like, hey, I'm all in on commercial, residential, industrial, anything like that on your side that you've had experience in at least, Mark?
Sure. Again, I have a lot of hotels. That thing. But there's two different ways. Actually, and I've actually been trying to figure out how to do if I put the right team together, is to scale single family homes, brand new build, is what I think is where, because there's so many exit strategies. That way, if I'm, later on and need some money or whatever, you got older and you want to retire, you just sell one of the homes, live off that home or whatever, or take the cash out and stuff. It's very easy to be financed and it's be able to piece it off. Yeah. The other factor that I play quite a bit in is the land business. I really like land.
That's interesting.
Any specific type of land?
Mostly infill lots. Or I have like, multifamily land and stuff like that are in infill areas. I really enjoy that. Because the issue is when you're dealing with homes, you're dealing with a lot of emotions.
Right.
You're dealing with a piece of dirt. They don't want to pay the tax anymore. They whatever. It's whatever. You can have it. The other thing is they may give you time where you can actually go put a development deal together. Because it's like, well, whatever. It's been sitting there for 20 years. We get the stupid tax bill.
Right.
We don't want it. I don't know.
Yeah.
We have no idea what to do.
Or my husband died. He was a crazy guy like you that liked to develop stuff. And now he's dead. That's the. I love land. I love lending. That's kind of the.
Do you think that municipalities would allow, like any sort of incentives for building like the build to rent housing? Do you think that would ever be a possibility? Or communities of them? I don't know necessarily know. That's why I kind of asked that.
Sure. I mean, possibly. So you could possibly put a TIF district together, and they may, you might be able to get the land for free, the infrastructure and that type of thing, or it might be a thing called pay-go where you get it over time. It's kind of an annuity policy if I were that. But
so many different things that are just thrown out there casually that I'm like, okay, whatever.
I know that terminology.
I have no idea what he's talking about.
See, that's what most people tell me.
I know.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But that's kind of like you have so much knowledge into. Like, that's why I told you should definitely start a podcast. Even if it was just you, Mark, speaking into a microphone and distilling some of this information down into like bite-sized chunks. Because like you have so much knowledge that, and I don't know if you realize it or not, but like the smallest of things that it's like, oh yeah, this is like everyday nature to me. Like I don't really think about this or accounting or the project progress and checking in on things or whatever the case might be. It's like what I found is people want to consume that sort of information. That's why when we had met last time, like just do it. And you have a plethora, and I guess we can get into that now. But it's like you have raised capital from a significant amount of people. for the projects and everything like that. What was that process like for you? Because that's
sure.
like,
Well, actually, I'll tell you how it started. Because originally, like I told you, my business partner and me, we were going to basically take the TIF money and build it, for cost and that thing, and just keep kind of growing our portfolio that way. Well, when I got down to Bloomfield, Iowa, like I said, I think it was deal number 6. It was a small town in southern Iowa, south of Ottumwa, and little county seat town.
Yep.
If I recall, I think we got a $420,000 tax increment financing grant, basically, or whatever, up front. I was on the way to sign the bank loans, the construction financing for the project. I get a call from Darren, the banker.
Okay.
And Darren's like, Mark, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I got some bad news. Like, what's the bad news? He goes, we can't do the loan. I'm like, what do you mean you can't do the loan? I'm on the way to the bank. I'm about 20 miles away. I'm just
sure now's the time to be calling me.
Drove 7 hours, 2 hours away. And he's like, no, I think we got a couple car dealerships back. We're a small bank. We can't do any more commercial lending. So it's on hold. Oh, great. He goes, well, we really want this hotel. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
He goes, well, let's figure this out. And then, gosh, I'm losing my mind. But Bev, I think it was a lady in her 80s at the time. She owned this bank. And he goes, sometimes Bev will invest in a deal, or maybe she'll just do the loan for what she doesn't mind owning the place for, or whatever. So we kind of worked backwards, like how much money we'd have to raise to actually pull out the project. We figured out the number. Yeah. And Darren, he gets on the phone. He starts talking to all of his heavy hitters in the county. All the basically the pillars of that county.
Exactly.
The big depositors or whatever. I mean, people that he knew, and that's how we raised our first thing, and that just went all over the country in every town. So I literally, I think when I left, I probably have 800 like accredited type of partners throughout the country. Basically, if there's Nowheresville or that I know all the money in all of those places. Those are.
How do you? Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like how do you even, I guess, come in contact with these individuals, or is it your partner that created these relationships to
the bank?
Really?
It's so when I would be invited to a town, or when I go in there and I'd show up, there's the mayor there's like the city manager there, maybe there's like economic development or a county economic development or regional or something like that there. Then there's like a couple presidents of different banks in that area.
Yep.
And that's how we basically found everybody.
Dang.
Because they're willing to invest in their city.
Yeah. Out of the 80 some that I did, I had probably relationships with like 60 plus banks throughout the country. So
that's great. That's incredible.
It is. I say it's how we built this. Is the small community banks. That's the key. And basically rural America. And the nice thing about it, we were able to go at any market, so we could follow the money. So when the economy was bad, the ag market was pretty good. As the oil markets were good, so we have a lot of investors that are farmers and things like that. And then we had a lot of oil field stuff. We did a lot of with the fracking and things like that. We would build hotels. I mean, we built hotels where the contractors had to stay in tents while we were building. I mean,
are you serious?
Wow. It's there's a couple other keys you need to have. You need to have a jet. Honestly,
really,
it's crazy to say that, but that is literally the tool that allowed us to grow how fast we did. I literally could drop my kids off at school.
How was that?
It was it's unbelievable. Honestly, that's the one thing I miss after I was there. It's like
that would be freaking cool.
That's awesome.
We literally pull into our, drop the kids off, go over to the hangar. Jeff, my pilot there, he had the jet all sitting out there. I parked my car in the hangar, hop in the jet, and we were off in 2 minutes. I was stayed in Nebraska, then I was in North Dakota, and I was back here for supper. It was like back to Appleton. So.
You're just, you're able to traverse so much ground in that amount of time. And it's like, hey, emergency comes up, you're not, whatever, a commercial flight away, which could be
days.
Who knows when.
Especially in these small, isolated markets where we were. I mean, obviously, if you were starting in bigger markets where you fly commercially, obviously it's a lot cheaper and stuff like that. But that's not an option. I mean, there's becoming a few more places you can fly to Appleton or something, but you can't, fly to wherever.
I'm trying to think of a small town, but obviously.
It was funny. We'd fly in this jet, and then and a lot of times, there's no rental cars there.
Correct.
They'd have a little courtesy car. And usually it's like a beat up old
That's what I
police
was about
car
to
with,
say.
like,
Yeah.
with doors are hanging off. And it's like, it was so funny. You know,
Oh my
we
gosh.
pull up to the
Yeah.
meeting or the groundbreakings or whatever.
That's so
The
cool.
stories are just
Endless.
funny.
Yeah.
Endless.
Yeah.
I remember back in Corey,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, a small town up in
Okay.
northeastern PA, not too far from Erie.
Yep.
We flew in there one day, and Jeff hung out at the airport waiting while we had our meetings.
Mhm.
Well, the newspaper came and they interviewed him. He was on the front page of the newspaper.
man.
They thought
Yeah.
like Donald Trump was flying in or something. I was like, it was like, those are the
Yeah.
stories. It's just
Wow.
like, it was, and again, it was a story. They were trying to say how important like an airport is for their little community
Correct.
and all that
Okay.
stuff. But they were interviewing Jeff and stuff.
That's-
I'm like, Jeff, you're famous.
Yeah.
Man.
Going Google searching and then it's like,
they're like, gee, is that Donald Trump here? I was like,
this is a small town. You
Yeah,
never know.
I was gonna say.
It kind of looks like it. It's like,
I'm just telling you, the
Yeah.
people in small town are the most phenomenal people out there.
That's what-
just hardworking, and they have so much passion for their
do
community.
you find yourself relating to them more than, okay, that's what I,
That's
because
what I
it's
was
like
gonna ask, yeah.
from
Yeah.
beginnings, like kind of the origin story that you gave us. It's not like you grew up in
Money, no.
Yeah.
a ton of money. Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, very humble beginnings to now, obviously you've amassed a ton of credentials in that process, but it's like people, I feel at least, it's like, okay, they're everyday people. And it's kind of strange to say that, but then you meet someone who's doesn't necessarily fit that mold, and it's like, wow, they're kind of jerks.
Yeah.
Like, it's like I don't know if I relate to them much, or I don't know.
You have to be a good old boy.
Yeah,
those
yeah,
markets.
exactly. Yeah,
If
exactly.
you come in to, whatever, too suit like, you're not going to survive.
Yeah.
But what's really crazy
Yeah.
about those small
That's-
towns is they wouldn't do, what should I say? Like, let's say there was a local guy that wanted to kind of put the investment deal together, or the incentive from the city.
Yep.
They never can negotiate what I can negotiate, or what my team can negotiate.
Why?
Because there's so much like, what do you call it? Friction and like backstory of it. They're like, he dated with my wife,
sister.
or you're my sister, and he's no, I don't like. He just has too much
That's
money
funny.
because they have a big
That's true.
power
Interesting.
struggle in
Yeah.
small towns, like the haves and the have-nots.
Right.
And
That's
it's like,
interesting.
I never would have thought of that. Yeah.
but a
that
guy
makes
like me
sense.
from whatever, I can come in, I can say, yeah, this is what we need. Oh, no problem. Boom,
Yeah.
it's approved. But a local can't do it.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that's like literally the niche.
Well,
Yeah.
but I see that even in conversations, like, oh, hey, like we go to obviously some small towns to buy properties, and whether they're going through something in their life or whatever, it's like, yeah, everyone knows what I'm going through. And I'm like, that's
Dang.
interesting.
Yeah.
Because you don't really see that, even in like Oshkosh isn't very big, but it's not 6,000 people,
Yeah.
or
Right, yeah.
10,000 people, or whatever the case is. So it's like, yeah, people don't necessarily know you, but in the small towns, everything,
They know
it tends
you
to get
before
along.
you- before you hear
Yeah.
something, they already
Exactly.
know it. It's like
yeah, that's
what's crazy.
Yeah, that is.
What's funny is a little story.
yeah.
So actually, I think it was Bloomfield, Iowa.
Yeah. Shout out to
we-
Bloomfield.
Yeah. There you go, Bloomfield. We're getting you in the news here. They were basically going to buy like a new lawnmower for the park or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
City.
yeah.
Well,
Yep.
city had a contract. Well, they apparently argued about this for like 6 months. Now, do they get a red one or a green one or what? The whole thing.
gosh.
And it was so funny. One of the council persons, he looked. He's like, okay, I happened to stay after they approved our money really quick, just like that. And he's like, okay, we just gave $420,000 away in like 10 seconds. And we've been fighting for 6 months to decide if we should get a John Deere or a Snapper or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's like that's the type of stuff you have that you're dealing with in small town.
Yeah.
Did the thought process, because it's like sometimes people from the smaller communities, they don't necessarily think as large as what someone else might think.
Yeah.
Like it's a very limited mindset, I guess you could say. Did you ever find that affecting like your ability to do things, or not necessarily? Because I know you kind of said it's like, hey, if they put up any red flags in the beginning, you just wouldn't do business there.
Yeah.
But did that ever impose on like your guys' thought process at all, or not really?
Again, typically our financial partners in all these markets, they had abundant mindset.
Okay. So it always
No
came
matter
back to
what
that.
market you're in, there is the few that do it all, the haves.
I know.
And the reason they have the haves is because they have the abundant mindset. and they think differently. They
Correct.
think progress.
Right.
Even though they're in a small town,
it's no different.
it's
absolutely
just
no
a scale.
different.
It's like there's like a handful.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
It's a little bit slim pickings, but it still happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Other than that, because there is a lot of that.
Yep.
It's weird how people like, or I don't know, just like, it's like, oh, I don't like that person because they're successful. And even though they're some of the most generous people that I've met with, I mean, that these are the type of people that literally would write out the check for the community center. That's literally our investor. It wasn't about the investment.
No,
it was about doing it for their community.
And but I know what you're saying, because it's like you hear comments like that are made, and you're like, but I don't like the person doesn't present themselves like the more well-off person doesn't present themselves as a jerk or insincere or anything like that. It's like, hey, they've had some success, so they're willing to give back. But some people perceive that as, it's like, oh, well, they're better than us now, or whatever. And it's like, I've never really seen that to be the case, especially in the interactions that I've had. But obviously people perceive it differently.
Right.
Yeah.
That's teach their own on that side of things.
That's not any of our faults.
No, I know.
It's just
like
the way that they take it, and some people are offended differently. So
it's too bad because there's joy in it, and they don't realize it. Just open up their hearts, and it's
and
again, go back to the Bible or whatever.
Correct.
I mean,
hey,
it takes money to run them. I mean, as Jesus said, the disciple. I mean, listen, it's not, money's not bad. It's the love of money that's bad.
Right.
And that's where there's a whole mindset issue.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
very true.
I guess like kind of the because we're getting close on time here on our side, Mark, but the question to wrap everything up is like, from here on for, like, what is the plan, or like what's kind of what are you chasing after now? Like nowadays, like what is it that you're really, really hot after that it's like, hey, I want to pursue this with a passion, if there is anything. I don't know. It's
literally finding people that have that excitement to create the joy. The next generation is what I really,
that's cool.
That's what
awesome.
If there's anything that I can help somebody out, that's all I need. I mean, it's just,
And how do they, for people listening and watching right now, how do they connect with you if they want to?
Well, Carter, as I told you, I don't have any social media. Okay, I'm off the grid. Okay, hey, I do have an iPhone. I don't have a flip phone. Okay, I've graduated there. So they can email me. They could call me. My phone number is 920-312-4444.
Okay,
920-312-4444. Or
it's a pretty easy number.
Yeah.
Did you buy that number?
I've had that a long time.
I was about to say.
Or they can email me first and last name at gmail.com. No dots, just Mark Pomerenke at gmail.com.
And we'll spell it right. We'll drop both below in the description.
Yeah, definitely.
Sounds good.
But I appreciate you coming in, Mark. This was phenomenal. I enjoyed every second of this. If you guys enjoyed the content, hit the like and subscribe button down below. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you in the next one.